Hi everyone, and welcome back to Fixing the Fog. Today's episode is a little different. Sydney is currently out of town for holiday break, so this one is just going to be me today. Over the past week, we've been breaking down misinformation by focusing on something really important. Not just facts, not just sources, but emotions. Misinformation does not spread because people are unintelligent. It spreads specifically because it targets how people feel. So today, I'm going to walk through the emotions and tactics that we covered this week. Fear, anger, guilt, stress, exaggeration, manipulation, and finally, how to protect our emotions so that misinformation has way less power over us. Now, let's start with fear. Fear is one of the strongest emotional tools used in misinformation. It's an intense emotional response that's caused by a perceived threat or the unknown. Fear acts like an internal alarm system in your body. It pushes the brain to react quickly, often before logic has the time to kick in. When fear is triggered, the brain goes into survival mode. Instead of asking questions or looking for evidence, it focuses on avoiding danger. Now that's why fear-based misinformation spreads so quickly. Scary headlines, urgent warnings, or claims that something terrible is about to happen all push people to react immediately. Fear is often paired with urgency. Posts that say things like act now, or this is being hidden, or you won't believe what's coming, are all designed to stop people from pausing. And when people don't pause, they don't fact check information. Fear is often paired with urgency. Posts that say things like act now, or this is being hidden, or you won't believe what's coming, are all designed to stop people from pausing. And when people don't pause, they don't fact check information. Over time, constant exposure to fear-based content increases anxiety and stress, which makes it even harder to think critically. When fear spikes fast, that's a signal to slow down, not to share faster. Next is anger. Anger is another powerful emotion used in misinformation. It's a response to perceived injustice, wrongdoing, or unfairness. Anger specifically creates a strong urge to react, defend, or confront. Anger-based content often uses accusatory language, loaded words, and absolute statements. It's designed to outrage and not to inform, and online, outrage spreads fast. Algorithms amplify posts that get strong reactions, which means angry misinformation often travels way farther than calm corrections. Anger-based content often uses accusatory language, loaded words, and absolute statements. It's designed to outrage and not to inform, and online, outrage spreads fast. Algorithms amplify posts that get strong reactions, which means angry misinformation often travels way farther than calm corrections. When anger is driving the reaction, accuracy becomes less important than expression. That's why pausing matters so much when something makes you feel furious right away. Then there's guilt. Guilt is an emotional response tied to responsibility and morality. It's that uncomfortable feeling that you've done something wrong or failed to do enough. Misinformation uses guilt to pressure compliance. Guilt-based misinformation often implies that not sharing, questioning, or agreeing makes someone a bad person. Silence is framed as harm. Disagreement is framed as immorality, and responsibility is exaggerated or misplaced. When guilt is involved, questioning feels wrong instead of logical. People want to relieve that emotional discomfort quickly, so they act. They repost, they agree, they comply. Not because the information is true, but because it feels morally safer. However, facts don't rely on guilt to be true. If a message depends on shame or moral pressure instead of evidence, that's a red flag. Next is stress. Stress plays a huge role in how misinformation spreads. Stress is a response to pressure or overload, and when people feel overwhelmed, their ability to evaluate information drops. Under stress, the brain essentially looks for shortcuts. Complex information feels exhausting, and fact-checking feels like too much work. So, misinformation thrives in these moments by offering simple explanations, quick answers, or someone to blame. Online, stress is increased by constant alerts, nonstop updates, and conflicting information. When people are overloaded, repetition starts to feel like truth. Confusion fills the gaps, and misinformation steps in. Taking breaks, slowing the flow of information, and focusing on trusted sources helps protect clarity. Stress makes misinformation easier to accept, but awareness helps interrupt that process. Now, let's talk about exaggeration. Exaggeration is when information is distorted to seem more extreme than it really is. Often, exaggeration starts with a small truth, but stretches it until the scale, impact, or importance is completely warped. Exaggerated misinformation uses dramatic language, absolute claims, and shocking headlines. Words like always, never, everyone, or no one are common. Context disappears, and uncertainty is presented as certainty. Exaggeration works because intensity feels convincing. People mistake confidence and drama for accuracy. But intensity does not equal truth. When claims feel extreme, it's especially important to look for original data and missing context. Then there's manipulation. Manipulation is a tactic that uses emotional pressure to influence thoughts or actions unfairly. Unlike exaggeration, manipulation is often subtle. It guides reactions by emphasizing certain details while also hiding others. Manipulative misinformation pushes specific outcomes. It limits choice, and it discourages questioning. Emotional pressure replaces evidence. Guilt, fear, urgency, and moral framing are all tools of manipulation. When information feels controlling or coercive, it's important to step back and ask why. Who benefits from this reaction? What perspectives are missing? Informed choices require awareness of influence. Finally, protecting emotions. Protecting emotions does not mean ignoring information. It means managing emotional responses so clarity stays intact. Strong emotions make misinformation more effective, and emotional awareness makes it weaker. Protecting emotions includes pausing before reacting, taking breaks from overwhelming content, and setting boundaries with information. Not every post deserves attention, and not every claim deserves a response. Emotional regulation supports critical thinking. Calm reflection leads to better decisions, and choosing accuracy over emotion is one of the most powerful ways to stop misinformation from spreading. That's what this week has been about. Not just learning what misinformation looks like, but understanding why it works. Before I wrap this up, I want to slow down and connect all these pieces together because none of these emotions exist on their own. Fear, anger, guilt, stress, exaggeration, and manipulation do not work separately. They stack and they overlap. They essentially reinforce each other. A lot of misinformation starts with fear. Fear essentially opens the door. Once someone is scared, anger often follows. Anger gives the fear direction. It tells people who to blame or who to be mad at. Then, guilt comes in and pressures action. It suggests that if you don't repost, agree, donate, or react, you're part of the problem. Stress keeps people overwhelmed so that they don't slow down. Exaggeration then intensifies everything. Manipulation ties it all together by steering reactions toward a specific outcome. Now that's why misinformation can feel so convincing even when it's wrong. It's not just about the information itself, it's about how it makes people feel. Another important thing to talk about is that emotional misinformation doesn't always come from bad intentions. Sometimes people genuinely believe what they're sharing. Sometimes they feel like they're helping. Sometimes they're scared or angry themselves. But intent does not change impact. Even well-meaning sharing can spread harm if the information isn't accurate. This is especially important online, where algorithms reward emotion. Platforms do not prioritize truth, they prioritize engagement. Content that sparks fear, outrage, or urgency gets pushed further. Calm, nuanced, accurate information often spreads way slower. And that doesn't mean the calm information is weaker, it just means it doesn't trigger the same emotional reactions. And when people are constantly exposed to emotional content, it changes how they interact with information. Everything starts to feel urgent. Everything starts to feel personal. Everything starts to feel like it needs an immediate response. That environment makes information thrive. I also want to talk about how exhausting this can be. Constant emotional stimulation online can lead to burnout. When people are overwhelmed, stressed, or emotionally drained, their ability to think critically drops even more. Fact checking feels like way too much effort, and scrolling becomes passive instead of intentional. Misinformation takes advantage of that exhaustion. That's why protecting emotions isn't just a nice idea, it's necessary. Protecting emotions means recognizing when something is trying to provoke a reaction. It means noticing when emotions spike suddenly. It means giving yourself permission to pause, or scroll past, or not engage at all. There's a lot of pressure online to have an opinion immediately, to react immediately, to share immediately. But silence can be a form of responsibility. Waiting can be a form of care. Choosing not to engage can protect both mental health and your accuracy. Protecting emotions also means curating what you consume, following credible sources, limiting exposure to content that consistently causes stress or anger, taking breaks from news cycles. None of that means being uninformed. It just means being intentional. Another thing I want to emphasize is that critical thinking and emotional awareness are not opposites. They actually work together. Being aware of emotions strengthens critical thinking. When you notice fear, anger, or guilt rising, that awareness gives you space to question what's causing it. A helpful habit is asking simple questions. Who created this? Why was it posted? What evidence is being shown? What might I be missing? These questions slow down emotional reactions and bring logic back into the process. It's also important to remember that misinformation isn't just about big global issues. It shows up in everyday posts. Health advice, trends, quotes, images, headlines, and even memes. Emotional manipulation can be subtle. That's why awareness matters more than memorizing rules. Falling for misinformation does not mean someone is stupid. It means they are human. Emotions are powerful. They evolved to keep people safe. Misinformation hijacks those systems. Now, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Slowing down more often, questioning more consistently, protecting emotions more intentionally. So, as you move forward, pay attention to how information makes you feel before you decide what to do with it. Fear, anger, guilt, stress, exaggeration, and manipulation are signals, not instructions. Thanks again for listening to this solo episode of Fixing the Fog. If you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Strong emotions are a cue to slow down, not to speed up. Sydney and I will be back soon. Until then, remember, stay curious, stay aware, and keep clearing the clouds with clarity.